All right, Madam Chair, you're live.
You. This is the Annapolis Education Commission. Welcome to our May meeting. First item of business on our agenda is roll call. So we are just shy, we think, of a quorum. So we are going to take roll, and hopefully some other members will join us as the meeting progresses so that we can actually vote. Ward 1 is vacant. Ward 2 is vacant. Ward 3 is Enid Collison-Lee.
Here.
Ward 4 is Kayla Golder.
Ward 2 is Jamie, isn't it?
Oh gosh, yes, I'm sorry. I'm looking at an old list. I apologize. Jamie's not here. Jamie? Ward 2 is Jamie Weaver. Sorry, was not prepared and had to pull this up at the last minute. India is going to join us and will resume her role as chair as soon as she can. All right. So where was I? Okay, so Ward 4 was Kayla Golder. Ward 5 is India Oaks. Ward 6 is still vacant.
No, that's me. Corey Mack.
I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry, Corey. I have you. Oh, I do have you. You're down at the bottom of the list here. Sorry. Sorry. Ward 6, Corey Mackel.
Here.
I apologize.
No problem.
Ward 7 is me. I am present. Ward 8 is Jess Packler.
I am physically present. I'm here.
At large A is Odessa Ellis.
Present.
At large B is Grace Matthews.
I've been meaning to call her. I haven't talked to her since her husband passed, so I don't know whether she's well or what. But I will call her tonight.
Thanks, Odessa.
Uh-huh.
At large C is Janet Norman. At large D is Ken Starks. We have our non-sworn member, Pamela Bukowski.
Here.
Yeah. And then our alderwoman, Shilda Finlayson.
I have a question. Kayla is she in the 12th grade? Is she graduating?
She's supposed to.
Yeah.
She's a senior.
Yeah.
Okay, and at what point, because in reviewing, going back, I was looking at some things. If you miss more than 3 meetings, you're supposed to be asked, whether you still want to be a member of the commission, according to the bylaws, by the chairperson. And I think we need to maybe update and reach out to some people to see if they still want to be members, and if Kayla is going to be going off to school, we need to probably look at another student member.
So Enid, at our last meeting, we brought up this subject, and we actually discussed and made a motion for discussion. I don't know if you had a chance to look at
I'm reading them right now. Yeah.
the minutes, but about adding, so the motion was the commission requests that the city council add 3 full voting student positions to the AEC for 1-year terms representing Annapolis High, Annapolis Middle, and Annapolis Bates. Quorum will be defined to contain at least 1/3 of seated member presence. And so we had a lot of discussion about that. And part of the reason was because of that, because, honestly, it's not fair if not fair, but I mean, it's not representative for the schools to not have somebody that's always on there, but also for the wards, we need both a school member and also a Ward 4 member, right? The last 3 years, the ward member has been a student member, which is fantastic. And I fully, strongly support having a student member. I just think that we should have that position be an actual student member. And that way Ward 4 can also have a representative. Does that make sense?
So what you're saying is that you would have a student member, but they wouldn't necessarily take up that ward position, but they
Right,
would still have a
exactly.
full vote.
Exactly.
Okay, and my question would be middle school. I mean, do you think that I know we have some very mature middle school students and we have some very immature middle school students, but do you really think that the middle school students would be actually applying to be a part of this commission?
So so that motion and this discussion came from when we had the transition team on education back at the beginning of Gavin's first term. And it was actually a suggestion that was made multiple times from multiple levels of education and residents throughout the city. I mean, do I think there are some immature middle schoolers? Yes, but I don't think those are the ones who are going to step up and try to be on the commission. But I do think that given that we have, 2 middle schools and they're two different middle schools, right? One's an IB program, one's a PBA arts program. There's a lot of, different needs and different focuses at each of those schools. I agree with what the majority of the people on that, what the majority of the people on, when we were having that discussion ended up going towards. We went back and forth. Should it just be high school? Should it be, and what have you? And the consensus as a whole was high school, as well as one from each Annapolis and Middle, to make sure that Annapolis and Bates, to make sure that those voices were heard and a part of our, a part of our discussions and a part of what we're dealing with.
So it says that the motion was carried on a voice vote, so it did pass?
Yes.
Did we have a quorum at the time of?
That's what I'm checking.
I don't believe we had a quorum at that point, so we're going to have to sort of re-vote on it this month. However, we still don't have a quorum, so.
No, you only had 6 people.
And we won't be able to have our elections tonight unless India joins us.
Did she say Laura, about when she might be able to join, or?
She's had an
No,
emergency.
the minutes say that it passed on a voice vote.
If you didn't have a quorum, it couldn't pass.
It did. We did have a quorum. The minutes say we have a quorum.
I have Oaks, Booth, 1, 2. Weaver, who's Weaver?
Jamie, she's Ward 2.
Come in right now.
Oh, good. Hi, Jamie.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm late.
It's all right. We're glad you could join us.
Quorum is 7 and we had 7.
Right, I see. Okay.
Okay. All right. So moving to our agenda, we need to approve our agenda for this evening. I guess you all got a copy of it via email, and it was posted on the city's website for anybody watching us on YouTube. So are there any objections to approving the agenda as written? All right, motion carried. The agenda has been approved. Now we need to approve the minutes from last month. Does anybody have any edits or changes to the minutes? Thank you, Pam, for taking the minutes. You did a great job.
I make a
You're welcome.
motion to approve the minutes.
All right. Any objections? All right, motion carries. Minutes have been approved. All right, do we have any public testimony this evening? Unfortunately, Dr. Tobin could not join us today. Do we have any committee updates? It's gonna be a meeting tonight.
So Laura, when you say, do we have any public testimony, is that what?
Do we have any members of the public who have joined us this evening in order to testify?
Oh, okay.
And there is not.
Thank you. All right, so do we have any committee updates? Very quiet this evening. All right, then that brings us to our unfinished business, which was,
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I
go
was
ahead.
trying to unmute and plug my computer in before it dies.
go ahead.
I don't have a committee update, but I do want to talk about the transportation situation. I don't know, do you want me to do that under new business or do you want me to do that under transportation committee?
Why don't you cover it now under transportation?
Okay, so, so as most of you know, as most of you know, are you guys hearing feedback or is it just me hearing my own feedback?
Yeah, I'm hearing feedback.
Back.
Is that any better?
Yes,
Okay.
it's-
All right, so as I think as most of you know, well, you should know because I sent an email out, but as most of you know, the city, the school system sent out the bus sign up, the link to sign up to register to opt in for the for bus transportation for the upcoming year. And I have a lot of issues with the way the registration is set up. It is very inequitable. The registration process is very inequitable for anyone who has minimal internet access. It's inequitable for anyone who doesn't speak English well. It is inequitable and really unaccessible for families who have low levels of literacy, which we know that in our cluster, all three of those things we have high numbers of all three of those things. And so I, in my email, what I, suggested, I've gone through and I've talked to a ton of different people. I've talked to different schools about this whole process. The schools are being inundated with this because now the burden is on the administration and the staff in the school to reach out to all the families who have not filled out the bus registration forms, which is one thing when you're in a 300-person elementary school. It's another thing when you're in a 2,100-person high school or an 1,200 student middle school, or even an 800 student elementary school, particularly at the end of the year, particularly when they originally were told they only had 10 days. It turns out that it's more than 10 days. It's going to be 10 days every day, but the last day is June 24th. And if you have not registered on June 24th to ride a bus, you will not be able to ride a bus next year. And particularly in the Annapolis cluster where the need for bus transportation is so great. I mean, we have, had countless discussions here about how not only do our families need bus transportation, but we need more bus transportation, right? We need to reduce our transportation radiuses from 1 mile for elementary to half a mile, and from 1.5 miles for middle school to 1 mile and no dangerous roads being crossed. We've had those conversations, but particularly with this situation, I really feel that this registration program is going to exclude a large number of our families. And, the last 2 years, we've had a lot of experience with online registration for various things, for hybrid versus hybrid and virtual, for signing up, for testing or for COVID testing, et cetera, et cetera. And our rates have always been some of the lowest rates. And so, long story short, I think I think this is a huge issue for our cluster. I think it's a huge issue for our schools. I think next year we're going to have all these families who are going to have their kids out there ready to get on a bus, and there's not going to be a bus stop, and there's not going to be a bus route, and there's not going to be enough spaces on a bus, and it's going to be a problem. I would like to advocate. I had asked, I would like to advocate on a number of different levels, but I really think this is something where we need the city to stand up and, you know, say this, look, our residents, you know, need this. I think the easiest solution to this issue in the short term for the year that comes is that all students at Title I schools and all students who receive free and reduced meals should be automatically opted into the program. And, you know, if the student family wants to turn around then and say, you know what, we don't need the bus, that's fine. But I think that at least we would capture, you know, at least that would create a net that would capture the majority of the families who may lack transportation and who may need, you know, and who may otherwise be excluded by this. Somebody that I was speaking with also recommended that any families that are captured as ELL also be included in that. So ELL, Title I student, all Title I schools, and all students who participate in farms. I mean, those are all people that they have technology. It's 2022. Like it should not be a difficult pull a list of all those and just say, okay, these families are automatically opted in. They're already automatically opting in other groups like special ed and IEPs with IEPs and etc. So, you know, adding these other ones should not be a hard pull. And then, you know, going forward, you know, for 2020, what is next year, 2023, 2024, you know, we can have that discussion, but we can have that discussion over the whole year as opposed to over, you know, a month and not really having any other options, right? Does that make sense? So I'm going to open this up for discussion, and then maybe we can discuss a motion or what we can do, you know, what we think the best way to advocate for this is, and or if you think that I'm just totally off base and should just be quiet.
Jess, we already know that absenteeism is one of most of the schools in our cluster have tackling chronic absenteeism as one of their school improvement goals. So it's sort of a no-brainer. Those numbers aren't going to improve if kids don't have transportation.
Yes, I totally agree also, Jessica. I feel like today, one of our buses didn't come and my son had 7 kids in his class compared to 18 because one bus didn't show up for Annapolis Gardens and none of those kids got to school. So I 100% agree with what you're saying. I feel like these families need to be opted in automatically so that they have all of that, because I think I even heard from someone, and I don't know if this is right or not, but that there are only 60% of people that have been on the buses this year have even filled out that form for next year already. So we're already failing. That's like already 60% is already a D if you think about that in terms.
And where is that 60%? Is that 60% of the Annapolis cluster, right? Because that's the other thing.
Right,
What percentage are we in the Annapolis cluster?
Right.
I agree with both of you. Transportation should not be a barrier to education. You know, if the school system's job is providing education, then, you know, they should not be creating any policies that prevent people from getting to school because of transportation or
Right.
lack of transportation.
My frustration in general with the opt-in process is I understand the reason for opt-in. Opt-in allows you to create bus routes based on actual students who are riding. You know, we know that there are kids that are in before and after care that are never going to ride buses. We know that there are high school seniors that have their own cars that are never going to ride buses. So I understand creating a process where we can take those kids out of the calculations for bus utilization. That makes complete sense to me. However, I'm personally very frustrated by the fact that the message being sent is if you don't opt in, your child can never ever ride the bus, which then means that all the parents are opting in, whether they plan on riding the bus or not, because they're being told you can't change throughout the year. Ideally, the way that this particular branch of logistics ought to work is that we should be running buses at basically like say a fixed figure, say 90% capacity. And so if that was a 40-person bus, then 36 of those seats would be allocated to students and 4 would be empty, so that at any given point in time, if a parent has a change, suddenly my work schedule changes and my kid now has to ride the bus because I can't be available to drop them off or whatever, then you call the school, your kid rides the bus. But at a threshold, say 95%. So we have 2 kids that opt into that have to change and opt in now to that bus. At 95%, now we hit a level where we recalculate the route because we have too many kids now on this bus. We don't have enough seats to accommodate in cases of changes. It's supposed to be a fluid system. I mean, this is the branch of mathematics that I have a degree in. So I'm going to admit this is a subject that's near and dear to my heart. That's how it ought to work. It should be fluid. Unfortunately, our transportation department has never viewed bus routes as fluid. They have been literally written in stone or written on the wall for years and years and years, and they don't want to make changes ever. But this process of requiring people to opt in and then saying you can never change your opt-in value defeats the entire purpose of opt-in. I mean, there's no point. Then go ahead and just allocate a seat for everybody. If you're never going to let anybody change, then in case of emergency, every single one of us needs to opt in because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if a car is going to break down or a job schedule is going to change, and we have to cover ourselves in that case. So I don't really even see a point of doing opt-in if they're going to do it that way. I mean, there's no gain. The only hope we had was to gain some of these empty seats that we are literally driving buses with empty seats around, and we don't have enough buses this year. So the hope was that if we improved efficiency, that we could gain some seats so that we wouldn't constantly be running out of buses the way we are this year. But this system isn't going to actually do that. So there's no point. And so, yes, I agree with Jess. We should automatically opt in our low-income students, our farm students, our non-English speaking students for all of the reasons. Again, just from a data processing standpoint, with the whole system, I mean, my husband and I had a difficult time. He has a degree in computer science. I have a degree in math. We had a hard time registering our kid. We were getting weird error messages that said that my daughter's birth date was incorrect. So it's the system, the process has not been fluid, even for those of us that are capable of going through all this, and many of our families are not. Odessa?
Okay, I've been around for a long, long time, and I've been, this county has been dealing with transportation for a long, long time. Is the problem now, since the pandemic, it's not enough drivers, or what is the problem with the bus situation? What's going on? Anybody?
We are very short on bus drivers this year. The pandemic, first of all, we've had 1 million people dead in this country, so it's safe to say that our workforce has reduced in numbers. Plus the great expansion of a lot of these delivery services. Amazon has expanded. Most every store offers some sort of form of curbside delivery now or home delivery that they didn't before. So there's just a lot more jobs now for people people who drive buses can do a lot of other things for more hours, better pay, and benefits. None of our bus drivers very few of our bus drivers are actually school system employees. So they don't have the same benefits that school system employees have. So if they can go to work at some place like Amazon and get benefits and be guaranteed 40 hours a week instead of, 2.5 hours in the morning and 2.5 hours in the afternoon, it's more lucrative for them.
But has anybody checked to see the average age of the bus driver? Because, most of them are seniors, aren't they?
Yeah, that's another thing. We've lost a lot of our seniors either due to illness or they're just not willing to take the personal risk to be exposed to COVID on our buses.
Right. I mean, I retired too this year because of the same reason. I'm a senior and I'm not going to be exposing myself to, COVID or whatever. But I mean, I think that we just got to start thinking out of the box about this system because, years ago, it was this, the county paid to have a transportation study done or something. That was about 10 years ago. And whatever happened? I forgot who the person in charge of transportation was at that time, but they always blamed everything on him. Now he's been retired for about at least 5 years, and we still having a bus problem situation. I mean, if most of the drivers are seniors, then we got to start thinking how we can start maybe getting more younger people to drive the bus, because there are a lot of people out there with no skills, and they probably need to be trained so that they can become drivers. It's just it's just time for a new paradigm shift. We just keep doing the same old stuff and keep getting the same old results. It's crazy.
Totally agree, Odessa. What about some kind of a program that in conjunction with the high school that would take our high school seniors who don't have jobs for after graduation and make that level of training available to them, providing them with transportation to get to whatever classes they would need in order to pass their CDL exam?
Yeah, something different. Since the pandemic, we just have to start making some new changes. We just can't keep going doing things in the past. It's time for some new results or new ideas or something. I just can't believe it, how we still thinking back in the 1990s or 80s, I guess. But in the meantime, we do, the bus situation. I know for a fact there are a lot of people down in Robinwood that I work with on a daily basis, and I'm not getting involved signing up parents, but I've asked them, have they signed them up? A lot of them don't have, phones, or they don't have access to sign up their kids. So it's going to be a lot of kids that's not going to ride the bus next year if somebody doesn't try to start working. I mean, you have community people that's supposed to be liaison, that's supposed to be doing things, working in the community, but it's not working.
No, that's a really good point, Odessa. Is there something some way that we can help the school system set up, maybe the school system was supposed to be setting up information systems or information sessions about start times for next year, and I haven't heard anything about that yet. But it seems to me that would be an ideal time for them to go into, if they were doing them in each of the communities within our cluster, and bring laptops with them so that kids could sign, families could sign their kids up for transportation at that time while they're there in the community. I don't know if that's something that we could specifically advocate.
Well, what I'm seeing is happening is that you got all these positions. You got people who work in the mayor's office, you got people working in the school system, but I don't think they're working together. Nobody is connecting the dots here, So, we need to try to get organized and try to have the people who are working in the community, these community people, get more, go around door to door, knock on the parents' doors and make sure that they know how to sign up their kids. But like I say, I'm with a lot of the parents in the Robinwood neighborhood, and a lot of them haven't signed up their kids.
Well, and that's the thing, Odessa, is that, the schools are doing that, but is that really what we want the schools doing in the last month and a half of school, right? Do we really want the schools having to go around and sign everybody up? Because I didn't say the schools. I say community people. There people got jobs to do that. Right. I mean, they're community. They're working for the mayor office, or they're working for some organizations that have grants and things, but I don't see them going out in the community. These community people, I don't want to call names, but there's one person in particular in Robinwood. They got an office down there, and half of the people don't even know her. So why aren't they working together with the schools to be going to these parents or knocking on doors and saying your child has your child sign up or whatever? I don't know, not the schools.
That's a good question, Odessa.
But the schools should know how many kids have signed up, though. I mean, do they have a tally to show how many students?
They do. The schools are being updated. The principals are getting a list on getting lists of how many kids have or have not, because again, it's all being put on the schools to follow up with those families that haven't registered.
Well, I mean,
And Odessa, while I agree, I mean, I do think, the community, if the school system refuses to make any change and do an automatic opt-in, then, I definitely think that going to the community services office, tying in that new department and the various community connectors that are there is a great idea. But in reality, what we really need is just them to be opted in, right? We just need them to be opted in.
okay, but the parents do not know how to do it. They don't have access to computers or whatever like that. So, I mean, a lot of them, they don't even know about it.
Right.
So,
And the
but-
issue too is that how are they going to notify families whether they got a slot or not? I mean, if you're opting in, that means that you are being assigned to a bus and a stop. So somehow they have to communicate to you, this is your bus and this is your stop. So if the families are being signed up by somebody in the office, then that means that, they may not have an email address or a text to get that information delivered to them, since that would have to be sent out to each student's family individually. Odessa, hang on. Jamie had her hand up and so did Pam. So let's move on to them and then we'll circle back.
okay.
Okay, thanks. Jamie?
Yeah, I was just saying kind of like what Jess was saying, as far as like, obviously the best scenario would be that if we could just opt everybody in and it would be done. But yeah, I feel like getting maybe the community school leaders involved and all of that kind of stuff. Like, I'll have a meeting with community schools next week at Germantown, but I just wonder what they're doing as far as, if they are going kind of like Odessa said, like to each of those families and helping them register or what's going on in that situation. So I feel like if what we want to obviously happen is for everybody just to be opted in, and it's just the easiest situation. But if that's not the case, how can we kind of get either the community school leaders or somebody coming out to kind of help, or maybe hosting like something at the schools for parents to come in, somebody to walk them through registering, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, well, the other thing too, I mean, we know what it looks like in our cluster, but we're not the only cluster. There are a few other clusters that also have the underserved populations as we do. So they're going through the same thing. I mean, this is bigger. It's bigger than the Annapolis cluster. And so it's even more important to get something done. I seem to remember at one of our meetings, I can't remember who the speaker was, but she said something about their school was able to make the Title I cutoff because they actually stood as families went by and had them fill out the paper that's due by September 30th. Did I dream that, or does anybody else remember anything like that?
Yeah, I think she said like when they were picking up laptops or something, they were also having to fill out the farm papers and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, so that tells you what, a school had to go through to get that done. Well, if that's already what someone has to go through, why would they think that this process would work? So I mean, I totally
Right,
agree.
exactly, Pam. I mean, and that's exactly my point, right? We can't get people to sign up for free and reduced meals. We can't get people to sign up for virtual and you're right, it is more than just our cluster. I wasn't suggesting that it be Title I only in our cluster. I think system
No, I
wide.
know that. No, what I was saying was because because we know what's going on here, I think we sort of having our commission, we have the advantage of being able to kind of project out to the rest of the county. So it's not, it's not only us. I mean, as we, if we try to get something going, we can say we're not just concentrating on our cluster. We're thinking, school wide, because that's what we should do. We're stewards of the whole school. That's what I meant, was that because you've done all this groundwork for us. It's something that as they take note of it, they should begin to realize Annapolis, that this is a big impact.
Yeah, I totally, I agree. I mean, and again, you know, with everything that we've been talking about, that's why I feel like if they refuse to make any changes, then, you know, then we move on to the, how do we help get the registrations done? Because as Odessa said, people don't know how to do it, but we shouldn't have to be doing that, right? We already know there is no question. Anybody who works in anything in the administration of the school system, there is literally no question that our lower income English language learner families don't fill out registration forms for anything, including things that get their families free meals, right? Like, I mean, you know, it's really, really hard. And it's really hard often because of the technology that is required to be used that is just not, it just doesn't work for families that are not upper middle class. If you don't have, for most of the things that we've been required to register, for most of the communications, you are required to have an email address. You are required to have a device that connects consistently to the internet with a good amount of internet space. You're required to have a device that it has access to programs like Adobe Acrobat. You are required to have all these things that our families don't have, right? That not everybody has. A lot of our families use pay-as-you-go phones. Those phones do not have access to the internet all the time, right? They have access to the internet and they don't have a lot of access to the internet. They often don't have access to programs like Adobe PDF and, you know, that you need to do. And there's just all of these barriers that just keep being put up. And if what we're trying to do is make sure kids are getting to school every morning and getting home from school every afternoon, we should do whatever we can to get rid of any of those barriers.
Okay, but you know, Jess, each school should have all the students who are registered at that school, right? So at the end of the day, when they compare the ones who sign up, they should be able to run a report or something showing the ones who didn't sign up. And then those are the ones that we need to start working with to make sure that they do sign up.
And that's what they're doing, Odessa. But you know, at some of our schools, like Annapolis High, you have 2,200 students. That's a lot of kids. So it's going to take them a while to get through that, you know, that list.
You know, I started out in data processing years ago when I was in my 20s, I tell you. And you know, how we do things now compared to where it was with IBM. I started on those IBM 2080 machines or something. And I just can't believe that we don't have a technology to really, you know, put a program in, spit out the ones that haven't registered, and then work with those kids. It's just amazing that they should have a program. I don't know who those programmers are over at that board, but it is what it is. I don't know. Maybe the guy that's working with the technology tonight, maybe he can kind of like understand what I'm saying. I don't understand why they don't have a program that can show the ones who signed up. I mean, it doesn't take that long to do a program. To me, I mean, we used to do it when I used to do data processing.
Do we want to make a motion? How do we want to address this?
I think a motion makes sense. So what do we want to say? The Annapolis Education Commission requests that Anne Arundel County Public Schools automatically opt in
The Annapolis Education Commission requests that the Anne Arundel County Public School System automatically opt in for transportation for the 2022-23 school year. All students who attend Title I schools, all students who qualify for farms, and all students who are identified as ELL students.
Sorry, what was this? All students who attend Title I schools, all students who,
Qualify for farm, and all students who are identified as ELL. Does that miss any of any population?
Can you read it again, please? I'm just want to make sure I understand.
Do you want me to read it?
Yes, please. Uh-huh.
The Annapolis Education Commission requests that AACPS automatically opt in for transportation for the 22-23 school year. All students who attend Title I schools, all students who qualify for farms, and all students who are identified as ELL.
do we want to spell out English language learners on there just for clarity purpose?
Right.
All right, any discussion on that?
Yeah, I don't quite understand. What do you mean when you say opt in?
Means that they will automatically be signed up for transportation.
Okay, and they have the know-how of the ones who haven't opt in.
Yes, so we said automatically opt in for transportation, correct, Pam?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, they can see who has or has not signed up.
Okay, that sounds
At
great.
least, and again, this is another, we know that the school system as a whole is collecting the information, but again, this is information that's being sent to whoever in the county, and I'm suspecting because of the way that it's being done, then they're gathering that information and then probably cutting it up and sending it out to the schools rather than having them be able to instantly see this information. So there may be a lag there. I mean, we don't allow families to enter any of their information, contact emergency forums, transportation opt-in, or anything by just logging into PowerSchool. It's always done through these forms where they send the form out and you have a special password to enter this information and then you send it off. So it's not ideal data processing to begin with, because we can't go back in and update our records, when we need to. But also it means that there's additional labor required because that information goes back as, a Google form or something and has to be processed then manually by someone in the office and then sent to the appropriate schools.
Now, Laura,
Hmm?
you know that they're opening up Newtown 20 next week, and a lot of those families going to be going back to Newtown 20.
Hmm.
So their address is going to be changed, So how are we doing that? Is there a deadline as far as signing up for the buses? I know you all say this, I'm sorry, but what is the deadline?
June 24th.
4th.
And they're moving people in 20. I don't know whether everybody will be in there by then.
I mean, there must be some mechanism in place to allow for students who move into area after the sign up deadline, because I mean, realistically, there's 6 houses that are either up for sale or have just sold on my street. So if families move into there after June 23rd, those kids are still going to have to enroll in the school and be signed up. So I would assume that there would be some mechanism in place, but again, I don't want to assume things of Anne Arundel County Public Schools because we know that they often are not as easy as we think they ought to be to accomplish things. So that is a good question.
Okay.
Laura, we don't have quorum yet.
No, we do not. So we can vote on this. I forget, India explained how this one last night. I am not the parliamentarian, India is. So I believe the way she explained it last one was that we could vote on it, but it's not necessarily binding to the organization. If we, if people object next month, we would have to vote on it again.
Okay. Well, we want to get this out there though before the 24th of June.
Yeah,
So we're under a time crunch.
I agree. And I think we need to get this. I think we need to get this out as soon as possible. I mean, the alternative is, even if we do not vote on this, if the vote isn't binding to us as an organization, we can still write a letter on behalf of the individuals who are present this evening, and as the following members of the Education Commission, which we could do that way. But we do need, I think this is important enough that we should at least vote on it. And then
I have a question really quickly. Janet gave you her proxy vote. She's not here, but she officially gave you her proxy vote. So does that, if her proxy vote is the 7th vote, then.
Yeah, let me see how she worded that. If she worded it for everything that we voted on this evening, or if it was just for the election, but you're right. Check what Janet said. I can find it. She just says, I'm conferring the right to cast my vote by proxy to Laura Booth. So yes, I could vote Janet's proxy for this. She did not specifically say for the election.
And I think we've discussed it enough offline to.
Yeah, I was gonna say, having spoken to Janet, quite a bit about this over the past few days. I do not believe we will be voting in opposition to, in any way, opposition to her feelings on this subject.
So let's vote. You all vote. I'll record.
So has that motion been seconded?
All right,
Oh.
so yes. We need,
Second.
Jamie, did you? Okay.
Yeah, I'll second.
all right, do we have any further discussion? All right, let's do a full roll call vote just to, let me pull up my hideously inaccurate list.
Well, Laura, did
Go ahead.
go on and say, go ahead and say that, never mind.
Hang on, I have to figure out where I put it. I lost my list that quickly. Oh, because it's not there. Hold on.
I was just thinking, would it be easier, I guess, for someone, is it going to be an actual letter or a proposal? Which is it going to be?
For this, I think we should probably send a letter. So after we have our elections this evening, we should have whoever is our new chair should probably draft a letter on behalf of the commission to Anne Arundel County Public Schools.
So, I mean, so right now we're only voting on that a letter is being written. At what point do we see the letter and say, yes, we want our names, or that the commission promotes that, is what I'm asking.
When I was the corresponding secretary, I would simply say at the whatever meeting, the Education Commission voted on the following motion, exact text of the motion. And then I would just sign it, thank you, thank you so much or whatever. And then sign my name as secretary of the, as corresponding secretary.
So could we maybe, so that we could get this in, you said you wanted to get it in, in order for us to get it in a timely manner, 22nd would be our next meeting, or the 29th, I don't know, one of those. Could we just approve that a letter is being written, and then, because how are we going to do the elections if we don't have a quorum?
I have Janet's proxy too. We have 6 people here and I have Janet's proxy. That's 7. That gives us enough to complete. That's why Janet wanted to be here this evening, but unfortunately she's attending graduation in Colorado.
Fortunately, she's attending graduation.
Fortunately for her, we are very happy for her and for Eric. Congratulations, Eric, on his commissioning in the Air Force.
So I was wondering if we could just approve that the new chairperson or someone write the letter. Janet, Jess, says you have all the information. I have no problem with just writing the letter and then sending it out, have the secretary send it out, and we could do that in 2 weeks instead of waiting until the next meeting.
Yeah, well, we have enough. If I vote with Janet's proxy this evening so that we can complete business, that's why she gave me her proxy, was so that we could complete business. Then we have enough that we can actually vote on the motion as written and send that motion out tomorrow.
What I'm saying is I don't want to approve something that I don't get to see.
Right, well, it's going to be exactly what, like all of the motions we voted on in the past, it would be sent out exactly as Pam's going to read it back to us, and then we will vote on that motion, and that's what the language that would be sent.
And it would say, "Dear Anne Arundel County Public Schools, the Annapolis Education Commission requests that," and then sincerely, like that's what we would
Yeah,
say.
it just says, yeah, so I would
Well,
say,
that's why I was asking if it was going to be just a letter or a recommendation. That's why I was asking. You said a letter, so I thought.
I used to send out them out as, after we would vote, I would send that out as an email, and I would simply say, dear whomever, school board, Dr. Arlotta, whomever's office it was directed to, just at the May 25th meeting, 25th, 2002, the Annapolis Education Commission passed the following motion, and then the motion would be quoted directly word for word that we vote on this evening. So Pam, can you read back that motion to us?
Yes. The Annapolis Education Commission requests that Anne Arundel County Public Schools automatically opt in for transportation for the 22-23 school year. All students who attend Title I schools, all students who are qualified for farms, and all students who are identified as English language learners.
All right, let's do a roll call vote. Ward 1 is still vacant. Ward 2 is Jamie, correct?
Yes. I vote yes.
Ward 3 is Enid.
Yes.
Ward 4 is Kayla Golder. She's not present. Ward 5 is India. She is also not present. Ward 6 is Corey.
I vote yes.
Ward 7 is me. I am in favor. I vote yes. Ward 8 is Jess.
I vote yes.
At large A is Odessa.
Yes.
At large B is Grace. She's not present. At large C is Janet Norman. I vote her proxy. So if you want to reflect that in the minutes, Pam.
Okay.
Thank you. At large D is Ken Starks. He's not present. And then our alderwoman is not present, and Pam is a non-sworn member. All right. So based on that, we have 7 votes. Pam?
So the motion, yes, so the motion has passed.
So the motion passes. All right. And then at the end of the evening, whoever is assuming the chair position will send this message out to the school system. All right. So then that takes us, is that complete transportation? Do we have any further discussion for transportation or for other committees? Okay. All right, so that brings us on to the unfinished business, which is student members on commission. Jess, do you want to speak to that?
So I guess, I guess I'm confused, and sorry about the piano music in the background. I guess I'm confused as to the unfinished business part of that, right?
We voted on it last month, so I assume that we are. Is there any further discussion on the idea of student members? Does anybody have any strong feelings on it either way?
How would we entice students to come to the meetings and endure, as well as what are some standards that I think we need to develop? I mean, it's kind of something new. I mean, I know we didn't do so much when we had the high school, but I think Sheila was very thorough in making sure, you know, of certain things that they would attend, that they were a good student academically, socially, and involved. So do we need to do any prep for that
It's a good
in that
question.
sense?
I guess, how would we plan on finding them? Would we contact the school and have the school nominate someone? Because then that allows the school, you know, the principal and the people who know those students to kind of evaluate a student that they think would take it seriously, and would be, I mean, I know we have kids, we have student government. Do we have student government at Annapolis Middle? I don't know if we do at Bates.
We do.
I actually haven't heard, we may at Bates, I have not heard. I'll have to look into that. But I know, like, obviously we have a very active student council at the high school level, the CRASC. So I would assume that they would be able to pass that along to kids that are politically minded and are, you know, are interested in serving in that sort of capacity. But I would think maybe asking the principals to nominate somebody would be a way of making sure that we're not, you know, that we're getting someone that is representative of the school.
Yeah, I mean, I think we started discussing that a little bit last week, and then, you know, how does that, they are all, you know, all of the schools represent multiple wards. So, you know, technically all of our positions are volunteer, and then appointed by the mayor, right? So, I mean, we could put something in there as identified by the principal. Or we could leave that open. I don't know how, because we wouldn't want it to necessarily rely on them having to be in the student government, because what if a school doesn't have a student government? Or for Annapolis this year, and granted it's you know, whatever this crazy year is, but our student government didn't get elected. I don't think, Corey, remind me if I'm wrong, it was like November, right? I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So, you know, so I think, I don't know if we just want to leave it more open-ended in the addition to code, and then sort of work through that on the outside, or, you know, do we want to be super specific in the code?
You could just say nominated by the school, you know, or selected by the school. And that
Yeah.
would leave it open enough, then it doesn't, you know, it could be us contacting the school and saying, hey, you know, do you have somebody? Or it could be the school contacting us and saying, we have a kid who's really, you know, interested and motivated and wants to participate.
I like that, because then that way, as selected by the school, because then that way it also leaves, if, you know, if one principal decides they want to have it be a voted position, you know, the school votes for that position. If another one decides they want to appoint it, depending on the year and the students and whatever, then that allows some flexibility within the school.
And I like the fact that you're right, that also covers us if they don't necessarily have a student government organization in place, then it doesn't preclude the school from participating.
Are we considering all grades or mostly A's or what?
Again, I think we leave it to the school, because, you know, it's possible, like at the high school level, you know, Kayla joined when she was a sophomore, and certainly participated and contributed. So I hate to say that somebody who isn't a senior can contribute, because I think we clearly saw that somebody who's younger can, and it could well be, you know, the possibility that we could get a motivated 7th grader at one of our schools who really, you know, really wants to participate. And I think we have to be realistic too. I mean, kids are, they have homework and sports and clubs and whatnot. And so they may not attend every meeting, which I think is why it's a better idea to have them as in a separate category rather than taking up a ward seat because of those reasons. That way we have our full ward seats filled with, adults who presumably understand the commitment that they're making to the board. And if a kid, isn't able to make it due to other commitments like that, then we're not in a situation where we are this evening, which is desperate to try to make sure we have a quorum. So Jess, we voted last month. Did we have exact language? Do we need to change any of that? Jess?
Sorry, I was trying to mute. I was trying to find it and then, so here's the motion that we put forth. The commission requests that city council add 3 full voting student positions to the Annapolis Education Commission for 1-year terms. Representing Annapolis High, Annapolis Middle, and Bates Middle. Quorum will be defined to contain at least 1/3 of seated members present. Because the reason that was in there was that we didn't want quorum to get affected if, for example, Annapolis Middle didn't. Oh, and no, I think we did that because there's no quorum isn't defined in our group, and so we just wanted to make sure that it was right.
I had that written as part of the motion, and I feel like I must have missed something because it kind of just stands out there by itself, but I couldn't remember anything else.
Maybe it's, and also that quorum will be defined to contain at least 1/3 of the seated member presence, because that makes, that's why, because it makes us a half a person.
Right.
That was why, because we have however many positions, 8 + 4 is 12, and this makes it 15. So quorum would be 7.5. I think is what, so that's what the discussion was, that we wanted to make it at least 1/3 of the seated members present.
So our quorum right now is 7, and we have 8 wards, 4 at large. And then we would add to that 3 members, so that would be 15. And presumably if all of those were full, then our quorum would be 5. Am I missing? Sheila's a voting member though, so that gives us 16.
Who is? Oh, and Sheila, right.
Sheila, because she's doesn't have a ward seat, but she does vote, so she is. Jess, you're more familiar with our
Right, it's 8 ward, 4 at large, 1 alder person. And so adding 3 would make it 16.
right.
I think, and then I feel like I need to go back and like reread the thing. Maybe we should table this till the next meeting.
Yeah.
If we're not. Just because without Indian here to remind us, and
Missing India. Yeah, I agree, because I
mean, I could go back and watch the YouTube and figure it out.
we have the motion, we have the wording of the motion, but I think the intention.
Well, and I mean, that motion carried on a voice vote. So I mean, that is what it is, right? So maybe all we need to do right now is to amend the motion to include as selected by the school. Right?
Do we want to also break the quorum out then? If we're going to vote again, I would break the quorum business out and maybe actually have two motions, because the way that it reads, it all sounds like it's one thought. I mean, like, I almost feel like the quorum is a separate issue. There's the student members, which.
Yeah, that's fine.
So, all right. So do we want to have another?
So the commission requests that the city council add 3 full voting student positions to the Annapolis Education Commission, which I think we should spell that out. It shouldn't be AEC, because the Annapolis Environmental Commission is also the AEC. So
Okay.
just to make sure we're not adding students to the Environmental Commission, for 1-year terms representing Annapolis High, Annapolis Middle, and Bates Middle, comma, to be selected by the schools, by each individual school, and appointed by the mayor.
So Jess, I agree with you. Could we table it, and since you and Janet were the ones that posed and second the motion, and you all can have that figured out and explain to us exactly how the voting thing works, because I'm not clear on that. And we need to know before we vote. Could you all, have that ready to present to us at the next meeting? Because I don't think we have to rush, because it won't happen till, September anyway. So wouldn't that be better, so everybody's clear and we know exactly?
You okay with that, Jess?
Yeah, that works for me.
All right, so we'll move that to the agenda for next month, and we'll put that under unfinished business. All right. So is there any other unfinished business that we need to discuss this evening?
Well, I did bring up about earlier, I was trying to find out whose job is and how do we contact about who wants to remain on the commission?
India put out an email last, like about a month ago, asking who wanted to remain. And I know she'd gotten some responses back. Janet said she was going to remain. I think my commission was up, and I said I plan to stay. I can't remember who else was on the list.
Yeah, I think it's India's job, and I think she's been doing it for the last couple months.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if she had, reached out to everybody.
Yeah, I think anybody whose commission was up in June 30th of this year, she did reach out to and said, because I know she contacted me specifically and said, your commission expires June 30th. Do you plan to stay? And I said, yes. But yeah, I think that would be, we'll discuss that. I think, well, the next month would be the June meeting. So that would be the last meeting for any of those seats. So anyone whose commission expires in June and hasn't voiced an opinion about whether or not they plan to stay, need to, I think, explicitly say that, yes, they plan to remain on the commission before their term expires.
So, and then she put forth nominations last meeting, right? So that was the last thing. She put forth a call for
Right.
nominations and said elections will be held during the May meeting. No nominations brought forth at this time. Nominations will be accepted until the May meeting. And Janet put forth a nomination for herself with Laura as the chair, with Laura Booth as vice chair.
Do we have,
But
all right,
I'm-
all right, let's move on to new business then. So,
Oh, sorry. I
No,
thought
that's
we were still I thought that was still the unfinished business because.
well,
oh, I
that,
guess it is.
on this week, I'm just looking at the agenda that we had, that India prepared, that says that new business would be the elections for this year. So if we're done with all the old unfinished business, let's move into new business, and then let's say, yeah, all right. So we need to have elections this evening. We do have a quorum with including Janet's proxy vote for that. So we have 3 positions that we will vote on this evening: chair, vice chair, and secretary. So we have received nominations for chair for Janet Norman, I have put in my name to remain as vice chair. I might actually get good at this by the end of the second term. And so do we have any other nominations from the floor? Pam, do you want to put in a nomination to remain as secretary?
I'll only do it if nobody else is, will step forward.
Oh, come on, Pam.
You're doing a great job. And we
Oh, thank you.
appreciate it. All right, so do we have any other nominations from the floor for those 3 positions? Does anybody else have a burning desire to be
Vice-
chair, vice chair, or secretary?
I make a motion to accept those nominations that have been put forward.
I
Okay,
second.
Do we have any, all right, so do we have any, all right, do we have any other nominations from the floor? No? Okay. Well, since they have been nominated and seconded, I guess we don't have any, if we don't have anybody else, Pam, I think secretary is yours unless you want to run screening. to the
Thank you.
next- Thank you for not running away. We appreciate you. All right, so I guess we need to go ahead and have our elections. Do we do a roll call vote? I don't remember. Do we do roll call votes or we just do any objections? We have 6 people plus Janet's proxy vote, which is 7, which is a quorum, so we can have an election. So do we just want to do, are there any opposition to any of those nominations? Slate as presented. All right, so should I do a roll call vote for that? Or do we just do? What do you think? Should I do another roll call?
I think we have to do roll call.
All right, so Ward 1 is vacant. Ward 2 is Jamie.
I accept those.
Ward 3 is Enid.
Yes.
Ward 4, Kayla Golder is not present. Ward 5 is India. She is not present. Ward 6 is Corey.
Yes.
Ward 7 is me. I vote aye. Ward 8 is Jess.
I vote yay.
At large A is Odessa.
Aye.
At large B is Grace Matthews. She's not present. At large C is Janet Norman. I vote her proxy yes or aye. At large D is Ken Starks, not present. Alderwoman Sheila Finlayson is not present. All right. So it appears we have our leadership for next year. Thank you, Janet in absentia, for stepping up. Those of you know Janet, she's been a tireless volunteer here for years, and she did a great job as president of the Annapolis High School PTA last year. So I have full confidence in her ability to lead our commission for the next year. Everybody. All right, do we have any other new business this evening?
Laura,
Mhm.
I just can't seem to comprehend what's going on with the superintendent search. Am I out of the loop or something? Are we getting any information?
They had a superintendent search. They hired a committee, or they hired a company who did the survey, talked to people, and then collected applicants. And I know that they have those resumes. I forget how many. Jess, do you remember how many they said they had? Was it 14 candidates? I forget.
I believe she said Dr. Tobin
Yeah.
said 14 last time.
And so it's not just a resume, it's a whole package has been sent to the board. And I know from talking with Dr. Tobin that the board has received them and has been reading through them. And I assume that there is some process that they will go through to both discuss and perhaps interview, those candidates as I don't know if they narrow them down or if they interview all 14, I don't know exactly, but
But my question is, as the Annapolis Education Commission, what did we put in for, like what sort of, not requirements, what's the word? What are we looking for? for a superintendent for this?
I know they did interview India as the chair of our commission, but I cannot speak for her, so I don't know what, I would imagine it's the same issues that we discuss pretty much every month here, but I cannot speak for her.
Speak for who?
I can't, they interviewed India. I cannot speak for what she said.
Oh,
I would assume that the views that she expressed to them are the same that she expresses every month, that we discuss every month here at the commission.
what? Okay, maybe, what do we discuss every month that we want to see in the superintendent?
Well, we've discussed the issues that we deal with here, which is like just this evening, we talked about transportation and the difficulty with communication for our farms families, for our ELL families. We talk about proficiency levels. I know we talked about them a lot the past several years.
Well, what about equity? I don't hear much talk about equity.
I mean, I can't speak for India. I know that she spoke with them. That would be a good question for her to talk. I thought she told us at the last month's meeting that she had spoken with them, but and briefly sort of summarized what she said. But I
just find it strange that we just haven't. I mean, not only the Annapolis Education Commission. I know there was a survey, but it seems as though to me that it wasn't much input from the community, discussion or Zoom meeting or anything. It's unusual to me, but that's okay. I mean, I know we live in an unusual time, so it is what it is.
I agree, Odessa. I was not particularly impressed with the survey that we received. There was nowhere in there where we could indicate areas like equity that are there was no place where families who received it, every family got the survey, but there was no place in there where we could say what our priorities are, what we think is most important. And yeah, I was pretty frustrated by that as well.
Strange. It's really strange.
Now, I believe the idea is that since we have the ability to elect school board members, we are electing them to work on our behalf to select the best possible candidate. So definitely, I would say weighing in with the school board members would be a good, if you have strong concerns, contact, Dr. Tobin is our representative. I would make them known to her and say, these are the things that I think are most important in a superintendent. And I hope that, as you evaluate candidates, you'll evaluate them with this in mind.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Unfortunately, she was not able to attend our meeting this evening and did send her apologies, but I would reach out to her.
All right. I will. Thank you.
Thanks. We do know is that they do have to have somebody chosen and has to have accepted the position in order to begin as of July 1st. If they do not have someone selected from this pool of applicants, then they would instead declare an acting superintendent who would serve for the coming school year. And then at the end of this coming school year, they would hopefully during the next school year agree on a candidate, and then that person would be named and would take over July 1st of the following year. I don't believe we can switch out mid-year. I don't think that's permissible. At least that's my understanding, unless anybody else.
No, that sounds about right.
I assume we will get more information as they narrow down. Probably they'll narrow down that pool of applicants and we'll get more information.
And I have another question. This is moving on to something else. Is that all right, Laura?
Go ahead.
I'm hearing that Annapolis High is overcrowded. The hallways are jammed. Is there any talk about how we're going to continue? Because I'm sure that the enrollment will be increasing over the years. So is there any discussion about what they plan to do with Annapolis High School?
I don't think we're even on the GMT list. Is it GMT, right? Is the study. I don't think we were even on the list for years and years and years. So there are no plans to build an addition or a bigger school. So, I mean, we do have with Crofton coming online. Ostensibly they're moving, students out of other clusters there. There are ways that they could move students around. They could certainly expand, like the STEM program down at South River would be, to me, in my opinion, a great place. I mean, that's a program that always has a long waiting list. So they would have no difficulty filling seats down there. So they could definitely move some kids down, I know when Monarch opened, they did a weighted lottery. So it's instead of just having the standard lottery, I think if you lived in the Annapolis cluster, because it was overcrowded, you got like 2 chances in the lottery instead of 1. They could do something like that. There's been a lot of talk about different things that they could do, but I haven't heard any concrete plans that they plan to address it. But it is a concern. I mean, that school has a state rated capacity of 1,900. So we're already about 300 students over that state rated capacity. Now they up the capacity by putting portables and things outside to deal with some of the overflow. And they do send some of those students off campus for like the CAT programs. They only attend part-time. So the numbers are a little bit more fluid, but that building is definitely at capacity and has been at capacity for several years. And in addition to more students just enrolling just as the population grows, we do have some new construction. So we will see additional students funneling in as various construction projects finish. They're talking about those new units that they're putting in the new development behind the Annapolis Town Center, where the ISI building, sorry, not ISI, USI network, USI was. That building has been demolished, and they are putting in a mixed use community. So there will be some retail and also some residential space. So it is quite possible that those residences could have high school students, and they would be then zoned to go to Annapolis High School, which would increase the load on that school.
Okay.
Do we have any other new business for this evening?
If there's no more business or announcements, I make a motion that the meeting be adjourned.
I just wanted to say, sorry, just on mute real quick. I just wanted to say, I wanted to give a huge shout out to the Maiden Factor and the Maiden boat that were in town for the last week and a half, and all of the outreach they did, and to our local schools and our local and our students. They have the Maiden, if you don't know, is the boat that held the first all female crew in the Whipwreck Around the World race in 1989, and they now have a mission of reaching out to excluded girls and letting them know about some of the opportunities that lie out there for girls, right? That there are opportunities in STEM and sailing and all sorts of things. And they just did a lot of amazing things this week. Seeds for Success, I think, went out there, Charting Careers. One of the 2 of them went out there. They had the entire Eastport Elementary School come this morning, hence my sunburned face, come this morning and visit the boat and tour it and meet the sailors and, not only learn about their amazing mission and their amazing boat, but also to, get kids on boats. We live in Annapolis, and so many of our kids never get on the water. And so it was really neat. They had some of the student leaders from Eastport come down last week for the opening ceremony. They met with the Seafarers Yacht Club and the Sea Scouts, just a lot of really neat things. So it was a fantastic opportunity. And hopefully more of those can come and we can do more of that stuff. The community schools program really helped to organize that. So it was awesome. So I just wanted to throw that out there. It was a really, really great program.
Awesome, Jess. Thank you for sharing. And thank you for also adding the community schools connection in there. I mean, we had such a great presentation last month on the community schools program. And it's really awesome to actually see that here is a program that was made possible. I mean, right away, we see the difference that they're making in our schools.
It has been really neat. I don't remember if she talked about it at our last meeting, but the sports program, Annapolis, Eastport and Tyler Heights have been competing against each other they were in basketball and different things, and they're going to the schools and competing, which has just been really, really cool. So just some neat things happening, to create connections and in the schools. And but this maiden factor thing was particularly a fun, cool program. So.
And that's true. I mean, I never remember when my son was at Annapolis Middle going on a field trip. We went down to the Chesapeake Bay Foundation and we went out in canoes, and then we went out on a powerboat to go out and look at oyster reefs. And for a lot of the kids that were there that day, that was the very first time they'd ever been on a boat. And, when you think about the fact that we live on a peninsula, so, I mean, if you're in most of our Annapolis schools, if you walk out the door and walk in 3 out of 4 directions, you're going to eventually hit water. That these kids live in that environment and don't get to experience that is, it's really sad. And we need to, I think opportunities like that, we need to make sure that we are, I know the Maritime Museum I went with the Bates science class, the 6th grade science went to the Maritime Museum in Eastport and got to go out on the skipjack, whose name I've just immediately forgotten. Is that the Wilma Lake? Yeah, and that was an awesome trip. I got to chaperone that, and it was a lot of fun. And it was awesome again because a lot of those kids had never been out on the water. So being able to do that, those are tremendous opportunities. And it's great that we can find them. I mean, we should be able to find them. I mean, there are so darn many boats in this town. It sort of boggles the mind that we can't find more opportunities like that, but it's awesome that our community schools, and that I think also shows that our community schools really are about our community and not just sort of a generic program, like that it really focuses in on what our individual communities both need, but also what's available. And that is clearly, I mean, the water is such an important part of our Annapolis heritage. So our community schools, tying our students into that heritage and making them aware of the history and the geography of the area in which they live is incredibly valuable. And I think we're really fortunate, and I'm really excited especially after the presentation last month. I'm excited to see what the community schools program does in future years, because I just think it's really filling a lot of needs in our community.
Agreed. Okay, Enid, now you can go. That's all I want to say.
We're still before 8 o'clock. So. Enid, do you want to move to adjourn our meeting?
I guess she's already adjourned.
Adjourned.
I guess we need to second her motion. She put forth a motion. I second Enid's motion.
Okay, Enid made a motion. Jess seconded. Any objections? All right. Thank you all. As always, appreciate all that you guys do on behalf of our students. Thank you for to all the children who were patient while everybody was online. Everybody go forth and take care of your families, and thank you all.
Go Navy and go Air Force for Janet.
Yes.